Hello YouTube, this is Bardic Monk, and today we're going to be taking a look at a situation that Fantasy Flight Games has brought upon themselves. This is the LCG Fireside Chat response video, but this is from a newbie to the hobby. Well, not exactly the hobby, but this game specifically. And I just wanted to give my 2 cents on what this could mean, or what this means to me. As somebody who hasn't been here for several years playing this game, these decisions do affect me, but my collection and my thoughts about everything aren't affected by this decision. I got in right when the doors are closing, and I know that these are going to be there's going to be good and bad for this decision, and I just wanted to give a measured response. So please hear me out and tell me what you think. But without further ado, let's get into the slideshow that I just made for you. This is a newbie's response to the current environment. And these 6 points that I have are what current could mean, why should or would you care, the bad of the Fireside Chat, why pruning can be good, should you join this space, and final thoughts about how everything turned out. So, first, what current could mean. Fantasy Flight Games introduces the idea of a current and legacy environment distinction. I skipped a post that they provided right after they had the Fireside Chat. I believe it might have been the next day. But pretty much from that article, they mentioned in the recent living card game Fireside Chat, Fantasy Flight Games head of studio Jim Cartwright introduced product retirement and the idea of distinguishing between a current environment and a legacy environment in our cooperative living card games. The definition from their website for what current could mean is 3 parts. 1. Starting later in 2025, older expansions will be retired, meaning no more reprints, and they will eventually be sold out. Second, this is to create a more accessible current environment, meaning the current environment as they describe it in that post essentially is the core set, Evergreen expansions, which they have not released and have not described, and newer active expansions, meaning the last 2 to 3 years of expansions that are released. And 3, current environment lists will be created and updated by each line as new products are released. So what is an Evergreen expansion? They don't go into the specifics. They actually just mention it and kind of drop it there. But as far as I can gather, this base assumptions for this, I'm assuming as a new person that there's a very high likelihood that any current expansions are not evergreen. My current thoughts: newer core boxes will be evergreen, acting as an onboarding tool. So the current core box that we have is, the tokens, the dials, and a few characters, including Iron Man, She-Hulk, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and Spider-Man as the heroes that pretty much everybody starts with. Aside from these 5 characters, we also have the 3 villains in the box, which are Claw, Rhino, and Ultron. So when anybody who is getting into this game starts this process, they will have those 5 characters to learn from, and they will have these 3 characters to fight, these 3 villains. So this is the design space that they want to go with moving forward. The current legacy environment as it stands are all of these cards. As of April 2025, we have the core box, 8 expansion boxes, and a plethora of characters to choose from. So the possible current that we're going to be dealing with is the core box, and then anything from Mutant Genesis forward. So pretty much the X-Men trilogy is going to be the set that is part of what we have going forward. And I feel like this is a very good time for anybody who's getting into the game and is a big fan of X-Men. This would be a very good time for them to onboard, essentially. This means that what we're leaving behind are all these sets, as well as the standard 2 set, which actually came in the Hood scenario pack. Of the things that are being left behind, and the only reason why I'm placing it this way, is that we do have from the first set up top, Captain America and Doctor Strange are no longer like reasonably able to be found. I do think the Hulk will be around for a bit just because of how many complaints everybody has for him. I do hope that they like he's one of the ones that they immediately go to and try to like quote unquote fix him. I have some thoughts on how people see him in this set. So, aside from those two, we also have the Sinister Motives, which is the most recent box. That was the funny thing to me, that the most recent expansion box is out of print. So many people like Spider-Man and all that they just kind of like, well, if he's in the core box, he has all his villains in that one box, and I think that's a very smart move for anybody getting into the game. If you could have found Sinister Motives, that was a very good way to jump into the game. So why should or would you care about this? But less options. This is a good thing if you struggle with making decisions on how to get into a game. If you are not aware, if I have not brought this up before, I believe I have, I really like fighting games. I started with Street Fighter 2, where we had 8 characters, and I kind of grew up just playing the same core characters over and over again. And then I kind of just like left the scene, and in high school came back to it. I had a lot of friends who played it, but they really, really liked Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and I had to look at that character screen and be like, well, where the heck do I start? I mean, look at this thing. It's ridiculous. But overall, what you get for whenever you're getting into one of these games and you start talking to the people who play it a lot, you start getting the general gist of like people not to play versus people that you always want to play, and then like the gray. No hard decisions have been made about the gray. It's more like, I don't know, it'll fit for some people, it might not fit for others. Some characters that if you main them, maybe they pair well with these other characters, and not just in like gameplay, but how they like are called in and stuff like that. So due to the mechanics, there might be a list of characters you never want to play as, and then you'll definitely have the list of characters that are just goated, like for real. No reason why you shouldn't be playing these characters. And then you have the gray, and it's very fun to be playing in the gray, but it's kind of sad when you have characters that are, just like trash tier. And this is where you have like the Hulk and Marvel Champions, not in this game, not in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. This is a bad thing if you want to get everything that was released for this game. But what does everything mean to you? I feel like this is kind of like getting into the Scarlet and Violet situation where you just can't catch all the Pokemon again. I mean, everybody's mad that everything is changing for the living card game scene, and it feels very much the same way of like, well, now we can't catch anything. We can't catch everything. And it's built on this like belief that everything would have existed forever. And I do think that I feel like there was a promise pretty much of like, we are going to pretty much run this thing to the ground, and we're going to continue to support everybody who plays this game. But eventually, they might have found too much success, and they'll just have to move on. And just like people who play Pokemon are just aging out of the game, just people who need to leave should leave. That's fine. And people who are just getting into it, get what you can and be happy with what we got. If you aren't happy with your Croagunk, your Vulpix, and your one expansion that allows Pokemon to carry you and to follow you from here to there, you just can't be happy with those 3 options, then maybe now is not a good time. Alright, the bad of the Fireside Chat. It's really all about timing, honestly. One, they should have given us a heads up before or when the decision was made. Because now some of us are fighting the Scalpers. Honestly, I lost that battle against them. I am not going to be purchasing Doctor Strange unless pretty much I feel like until the game dies, Doctor Strange is probably going to be his $200 price tag all the time. And I don't want to deal with that, so I'm not even going to worry about it. I made my own cards. I have my proxies, I guess, and I just don't need to deal with all that nonsense. So I feel like they should have given us a heads up, but whatever. Number 2, they should have had a few more meetings to iron out the details before the Fireside Chat. Don't mention an Evergreen expansion if you don't have any released. Um, announce one if that's going to be the case, and kind of just like give us a general gist of what that's going to be. You don't have to give us the exact cards, but tell us what's going to be in there. Because right now, you're kind of just creating an environment, like you're creating an actual like monetary environment for people just getting into the game where they're just going to be priced out of buying stuff because they don't know what's going to go out until it's too late, and then people are just buying up everything and then turning around and selling it online for way more expensive than it should be. Also, maybe iron out what the current environment's going to be before you even start saying anything about it. Give us just like a hard and fast, like, look, anything from the X-Men expansions is going to be evergreen, and we're going to have like if they're not going to have any characters, if they're going to have any expansions before the X-Men sets become like current, they would have like one more printing of it. But I don't think that's feasible, just with the way that things are turning out now. But at the time, they could have just said, "Hey, we're going to try to do one more printing of Sinister Motives. So just stay tuned, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible." All right, so they could have done that. Why pruning can be good? It promotes a healthy environment for the game, and it can prevent content bloat. So how pruning can be good? So again, I have these characters, like just so many of them, and I don't know where to start. So how about I just get back into like, what if this was the Marvel Champions situation for a new person? Maybe the core box is just these characters in the first game. So these are the characters I would focus on. Just one of these sets, and then everybody else is kind of just other expansions that are just like legacy, or in some way, shape, or form. You know, they have been released, but I no longer have to worry about them because they're no longer current. And anything that comes out from here on out is kind of just focusing on these characters here. Then we have this set. So now we have an expansion, and they focus on specifically these core characters in green, but then they introduce these other characters. So now I'm trying to pick a character. I've kind of gotten used to all the greens, and I'm like, well, okay, I'll start dipping my toes into these newer characters, and we're going to mark them in purple or pink. And now, when I am working through the core box and all these expansions, I now only have to focus on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 new characters. And then we have this third release, where we have a lot of people looking at this and they're saying, oh, they're kind of bringing back some of the characters, but they're not exactly the same. They're like side grades. And I feel like this would be the equivalent of a re-released character. We have these characters who either are coming back from an older wave, or somebody adjacent to them is being like shown up. So you have like, instead of Zangief, you have Hagar running around. Instead of BB Hood, you have Deadpool, stuff like that. Lastly, like instead of Mega Man, you do have Zero, and it'd be something like this. If how printing works essentially would be like this. So you have all these characters that don't get like shown up, and it just kind of like helps these newer players focus, and it would have helped me enjoy Marvel's Capcom 2 a little bit better. So this is what we got. So printing can be healthy for the environment, honestly. It's exactly what needs to be done sometimes. So I think this is one of those cases where it is necessary. I just feel like the real bad issue was just that they didn't tell us ahead of time. All right, there's a little issue that I'm having with this, but really it's probably like very helpful. My first instance of having to deal with anything like this with content bloat is Ascension. at the time, Chronicle of the Godslayer became the deck building game eventually. But I really, really liked the first box. The first box came out, I loved it. I played it a lot with my friend. We played it all the time, and then they ended up just it was just really good. It was very simple. You started playing this, and you have just like a simple deck of cards, like that you're all grabbing from, and you're just trying to make your own decks throughout this game. And then we liked it so much that we ended up getting the expansion boxes when they came out the following year. And they kept making more and more content. And the first expansion box, we loved it. The second expansion box was when we started getting into like, we're not really finding the combos that we like, and then the cards aren't like, we're not having as much fun, but we are still enjoying this game. And hopefully they stop here. And then came the content bloat, where you just have too many cards in that deck, and it's just like there's just so much. You have this stack of cards that are just unending, tipping over, constantly falling over, just like no matter what you do, you're never going to bump into the cards that you want. You can't plan for anything because you don't know who has what or when something's going to pop up. Now, this is all to say that at the end of the day, I know that Ascension is not Marvel Champions. They are different enough. Ascension, I did feel like everything is kind of just one set of cards that you're going to constantly build on top of. And Marvel Champions distinguishes itself by being something that you could just get into the game with a base box. If you like the base box, then maybe you'll get into an expansion or scenario pack. What you're seeing on the screen right now is exactly how I got into the game. I tried Marvel Champions out. I had a fun time with Spider-Man vs. Rhino, and I like Cable from when I was reading Cable and Deadpool. Mojo has always been a very interesting character to me, like a TV producer being this multi-dimensional menace. And of course, growing up, I was a huge fan of the cartoons for X-Men, and Wolverine always felt like the main character to me as a kid. And like getting into this game, I knew for a fact that something like this would eventually come. I knew that eventually we'd have a situation where they either got too big or they just needed to, cut down on the amount of material that they had. So I've always looked at this and thought like eventually this is going to happen, because either the game gets too big or the game gets too big and dies, or they'll come to a conclusion where they're like, well, we do need to scale things down. We're going to have to eventually introduce the cycle that people don't like for card games. But really, I feel like the LCG market can kind of fix this, introduce a new style of cycling out material, because they kind of want to be like an evergreen product. They're going to have that core box. They should do another core box at some point, but really they kind of just need to, for their survival, they need to cut down on the amount of stuff that they're putting out. Just so they don't have to fight themselves from the past and dwell on those decisions. Eventually, the mistakes that they made will age out, and we will have a better game eventually. So, for anybody new who's getting into the space, should you join it? If you like Marvel and card games, yes. If you like advanced board games, also yes. If you are interested but have no one to play with, still an emphatic yes from me. Because, again, it's Marvel, it's card games, it's pretty advanced, and you can play it solo. But if you like lighter board games, no. And if you need to complete your collection of everything in order to get into a game, also no. And if you don't like Marvel at all, then I guess definitely not. And then final thoughts. Okay, I want to say this. I don't work for FFG. Okay, Fantasy Flight Games. I'm not, you know, working their uh, in their archives or anything like that. I'm not part of the company. I'm just going to say that. I am saying that they mentioned Evergreen expansions, and what could Evergreen mean? Now, once is a coincidence, and we're going to start with that. In this current legacy environment, we do have a situation where they have expansion and 4 characters usually. So, in all the expansions, they'll have 4 character cards with them, and a few of them have scenario packs, but not really. But they do have this really weird thing with the core box and the Mutant Genesis box. Okay? The core box has 6 characters, and so does the Mutant Genesis box. If they release a new core box, I feel like this might be it. But if they end up doing that, they might have a situation on their hands when they have to create the next box. I don't know if it's going to be like, we really have to see what their release schedule is for Ages of Shield. It might not be this box, it might be the next one. But if they start releasing 6 more characters, I feel like the Mutant Genesis box could be it. They will probably get something for the mutants, right? They'll just get the core box, look at the Mutant Genesis box, just fit it in there, and then just create the X-Men box. And as far as like a new core box is concerned, I think they might get the best ofs for this old content that we're now losing, and they'll just kind of like refurbish them a little bit and then just throw them into a new box. So those are my thoughts. That's everything that I have. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked this. This is my first time trying to do anything like this, but overall, this is my 2 cents on how things can turn out. I do feel like there's a lot of like negativity in the space, but I just wanted to bring some levity. I just wanted to say that yes, it does stink when this happens, but nothing can last forever. And in order for there to be a good community and for us to have like a good situation for like the amount of content that we have versus like how much is like available to new people, I don't think everything needs to be available. I think there's going to be these few cards here and there that need to be circulating, and it does stink for us to have gotten everything at this point. For us to get like a revised version of another card, but it's going to happen. I do hope that they reprint some of the eroded cards, because like for example in my game that I played, the eroded Iron Fist gets like punch once essentially before he actually does his damage, instead of hitting and then doing an extra punch afterwards as a response. So those are my thoughts. Thank you for listening, and everybody, I hope you had a great day. I hope you have a good time. Make wise decisions. Make very good decisions about your purchasing options here, and all in all, just have a great day and stay positive. Thank you.